The chatter around Jimmy Kimmel has reached a fever pitch, and it's not because of a killer monologue or a viral skit. It's because two heavyweights, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, have zeroed in on him, not with fists but with words sharp enough to slice through the polished veneer of late-night TV. This isn't a typical celebrity feud, the kind that fizzles out after a few tabloid cycles. It's a verbal demolition derby, and Kimmel, once the jester-in-chief, seems to have forgotten his helmet. The question isn't just what Kimmel said or did to spark this, it's what he represents in a media landscape that feels increasingly hollow. Rogan and Kelly aren't just roasting a comedian, they're dissecting an entire system that's traded authenticity for applause. And the punchline? It's not funny, it's tragic. Let's start with the scene. Picture Kimmel at the Kennedy Center Honors, an event dripping with prestige, where President Joe Biden fumbled names like Dionne Warwick and Barry Gibb, calling them Diane and Billy. It's the kind of moment that late-night hosts use to pounce on, mining it for laughs with a quick jab or a sly impersonation. But Kimmel, who was there, stayed silent.
Why?
The speculation runs wild. Maybe he's protecting Biden, a potential Democratic nominee, or maybe he's just too cozy with the establishment to risk a real zinger. Either way, it's a far cry from the Kimmel of yesteryear, the one who co-hosted the Man Show with beer-chugging skits and unapologetic irreverence. That Kimmel would have had a field day. This Kimmel, he's on vacation, or so we're told, unable to muster even a tweet to set the record straight. This silence is what lit the fuse. Rogan, the podcasting powerhouse whose unfiltered rants draw millions, doesn't buy the vacation excuse. To him, Kimmel's absence from the conversation isn't a scheduling conflict, it's a symptom of a deeper rot. Rogan's critique isn't personal, it's philosophical. He sees Kimmel as a fossil from a time when comedy meant taking risks, not dodging them. The guy who once high-fived bros for fart jokes is now Hollywood's moral concierge, delivering monologues that feel more like TED Talks than comedy sets. Rogan, whose entire brand is built on saying what others won't, finds this transformation not just disappointing but offensive. It's like watching a dive bar swap out its jukebox for gluten-free kale shots. The betrayal stings, and Rogan's not subtle about it. He calls Kimmel out for trading his comedic soul for a seat at the cool kids' table, where the jokes are safe, the politics predictable, and the applause pre-programmed. Then there's Megyn Kelly, who enters the fray like a prosecutor with a stack of evidence. Where Rogan swings a sledgehammer, Kelly wields a scalpel, slicing through Kimmel's carefully curated image with surgical precision. To her, Kimmel isn't a fallen comic. He's a puppet, a mouthpiece for an industry that only cares about virtue when the cameras are rolling. Kelly's not interested in Kimmel's old man show days or his beer pong skits. She's focused on the pivot, how a guy who once thrived on crude humor now clutches a golden moral compass that always points toward the applause. Her take is brutal but clear. Kimmel's transformation isn't organic growth, it's a calculated rebrand, timed perfectly with contract renewals and cultural shifts. He didn't evolve, he adapted, sensing the winds of political correctness and hoisting a sail made of publicist-approved apologies. The hypocrisy is what galls Kelly most. Kimmel's past isn't exactly a secret. He's worn blackface multiple times, most notably in a recurring Comedy Central sketch where he played Oprah Winfrey, complete with a fat suit and an exaggerated urban accent, darning socks for laughs. He also donned blackface to impersonate Karl Malone and others, leaning into stereotypes that would get most people canceled today. Yet Kimmel, now the moral sheriff of late night, gets a pass.
Why?
Because he's aligned himself with the right narrative. Hollywood doesn't care about his past, they care about his present utility. As long as he's preaching the approved sermon, his sins are forgiven. Kelly sees this for what it is, not redemption, but market alignment. Kimmel's not sorry, he's strategic. Rogan, meanwhile, approaches the same hypocrisy from a different angle. He's less concerned with Kimmel's past than with what he's become, a comedian who's forgotten how to be funny. Rogan's world is messy, raw, sometimes unhinged, but always authentic. His podcast is a space where ideas, good, bad, or insane, duke it out without a referee. Kimmel's late-night stage, by contrast, feels like a daycare for ideologues, where every joke is vetted, every punchline sanitized, and every monologue designed to prove he's done his ideological homework. Rogan's not mad at Kimmel for changing, he's mad at what that change represents. Late-night TV, once a bastion of rebellion, has become a corporate echo chamber, and Kimmel's the head babysitter, grinning through it all. The numbers tell a grim story. Kimmel's show averages 1.5 million viewers, a far cry from the glory days of late night when hosts like Johnny Carson or even Jon Stewart pulled in millions more. The Daily Show is down to 366,000 viewers, a shadow of its 2 million peak under Stewart. Seth Meyers limps along with 778,000, while Greg Gutfeld, on cable's Fox News, doubles Meyers' audience despite requiring a subscription. These aren't just ratings, they're a referendum. Audiences aren't tuning in for lectures disguised as comedy. They're craving something real, something that doesn't feel like it was focus grouped by a diversity consultant. Rogan, with his 11 million Spotify listeners, and Kelly, with her growing independent platform, are proof that authenticity still sells. Kimmel's sanitized sincerity? Not so much. The blackface issue looms large, not because it's new but because it exposes the double standard. Billy Crystal, honored at the same Kennedy Center event, once performed in blackface at the Oscars. Kimmel, who's hosting the Academy Awards again this year, has his own history with the trope. Yet neither faces the consequences that others, like Chris Harrison, fired from The Bachelor for merely questioning the outrage over a contestant's antebellum party, endure.
Why?
Because Crystal and Kimmel are allies now, their pasts conveniently erased by their present politics. Kelly calls this what it is: performative redemption. The media loves a comeback story, but only if the redeemed join the choir. Kimmel's not just singing, he's the lead soprano, belting out monologues that flatter the elite while dodging the mirror. Rogan's take is less about the politics and more about the comedy, or lack thereof. He remembers a time when comedians took risks, when jokes made you squirm, maybe even rethink your worldview. Now, comedy's been neutered, reduced to claptor, that awkward hybrid of clapping and laughter, not for what's funny but for what's correct. Kimmel's monologues aren't built around punchlines anymore. They're structured to signal virtue. A recent example: when Elon Musk tweeted about his pronouns being prosecute/Fauci, Kimmel fired back, saying Musk's pronouns were ass and hole. It was a decent jab, the kind of thing old Kimmel might have tossed out with a grin. But then came the backlash, not from conservatives, but from progressives, who chided Kimmel for joking about pronouns at all, calling it transphobic. Rogan's reaction? A mix of amusement and exasperation. Even when Kimmel tries to be edgy, he's policed by his own side. It's comedy as minefield, and Kimmel's too busy tiptoeing to land a punch. Kelly's not laughing. To her, Kimmel's pronoun joke isn't a misstep, it's evidence of his leash. He's not free to be funny, he's obligated to be correct. The same networks that pay his salary, ABC, owned by Disney, set the boundaries. The same sponsors who fund the news fund the monologues, and their influence is inescapable. Kimmel's not just a host, he's a brand ambassador for a system that demands loyalty over laughter. Kelly's seen this game before, from her days at Fox and NBC. She knows how the sausage is made, the meetings, the memos, the unwritten rules that shape what's said and what's silenced. Kimmel's not a victim of this system. He's a beneficiary, thriving because he's learned to play by its rules. The irony is thick. Kimmel, once the king of crude, now lectures America on morality. The guy who built his career on bikini bounce houses and frat boy antics is now Hollywood's Dalai Lama, clutching his pearls over Trump's tweets or climate change. Rogan sees this as a betrayal of comedy itself, a surrender to the algorithm. Kelly sees it as a betrayal of principle, a willingness to sell out for a bigger paycheck and a better seat at the gala. Together, they form an unlikely but lethal tag team, exposing Kimmel not just as a person but as a symbol of everything wrong with modern media. The bigger picture is bleaker. Late-night TV used to feel like a 2 a.m. bar, chaotic, unpredictable, sometimes messy, but always honest. Now it feels like a corporate retreat, complete with trust falls and diversity workshops. The hosts aren't comedians anymore, they're influencers with better lighting. The jokes don't challenge power, they flatter it. When Kimmel rants about healthcare or immigration, it's not satire, it's a press release with a laugh track. Rogan and Kelly aren't just calling out Kimmel, they're mourning the death of an art form. Comedy, once a weapon against the powerful, has become a tool for the elite, and Kimmel's the poster child for its decline. So where does this leave us? At a crossroads. On one side, you've got Rogan and Kelly, flawed but fiercely independent, swinging at the padded walls of the echo chamber. On the other, Kimmel, floating on the warm currents of approval, delivering monologues that feel like they were written by a focus group. The choice isn't just about who's funnier, It's about what we value. Do we want comedy that provokes, that risks offense, that dares to be wrong? Or do we want comedy that's safe, predictable, and pre-approved? Rogan and Kelly have made their case, and it's not just a roast, it's a reckoning. They didn't humiliate Kimmel, they exposed the scaffolding propping up his stage. And they did it with a smirk, a side eye, and a silence that says more than any monologue ever could. The next time Kimmel climbs onto his moral high horse, maybe pause and ask, is this comedy, or is it a commercial? Because the jokes aren't the point anymore, they're the sugar coating on a lecture. And if you're still laughing, Rogan and Kelly have one question: at what?